Hello and welcome to Weaving Voices podcast. This is Josephine Thomason. I'm your host for this podcast. And today's installment, I would like to open up a conversation around the pandemic of soul loss. So, as a little context, I am a soul tender person who has worked doing soul retrieval about 15 years or so, and as a result have a lot of soul retrieval stories and a lot to offer as far as perspective on what that is. And in that, I have been observing the effects of this pandemic on the energy body, and it's really pretty fascinating, really. And so I just want to open up that conversation and have it. So to begin, I will just explain a little bit about what is soul loss and what is soul retrieval, and then bring in the collective soul loss that we seem to be suffering. So, on a regular day, pandemic aside, soul loss occurs naturally when you suffer a trauma. And this can be a one-time big traumatic event, or it can just be an ongoing stressful situation where you just bleed out a little bit every day due to abuse or shame or whatever it is, guilt. There are lots and lots of different reasons that we lose parts of ourselves, and a million different stories that go along with it. And it is typically very personal. It can be, one of our really deep woundings, or generally is. Some of our deepest woundings is those places of deep soul loss. So soul loss is that natural, it's what our soul does in response to trauma. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It is just what it is. And generally when I describe this to people, they go, oh, that's what that is, right? So our society is full of all kinds of art about soul loss and songs about, I gave part of myself to you, or my heart, I gave you my heart, all of these ideas. But what it feels like to be suffering from soul loss is a hollowness, and usually it results in extreme anxieties and addiction issues, because you're trying to fill that spot and numb it out, because it's incredibly painful to not be fully in your body. So with that in mind, there's a lot to why you would spill and what you spilled and where you spilled and all of these ideas. But then how do you bring it back? And that is the lens of cleaning it up and how to heal from it. And that's the part that I want to really drive home right now. Like, really, if you don't get anything else from this, just remember there is something you can do about it. It is not something you just have to live with for the rest of your life, which most messaging around soul loss is that, you just have to learn how to deal with it and, manage your addictions, because, that's just how it goes. Okay, so take notes. Remember that there is something you can do. It's called soul retrieval. It isn't the most common thing in our society to come by, but there are people who do the practice, and I am one of them. So, if you need help, give me a call. Okay, so in that, soul retrieval is the process of bringing back those soul parts that have fragmented, and where it is a shamanic practice of journey. You go and you get the parts and you bring them back. I'm making it pretty simple because it's not appropriate to try to share how you do this through a podcast. It's there's a fair amount of training involved. So, but that's the gist of it. But in my exploration of soul loss and soul retrieval, and like I said, I've been doing this for over 15 years, I have found that there is a rhyme and a reason to different types of trauma register in different places in the body relatively consistently, and that, you know, from person to person. It is a very individual thing, but the body's memory holds it in a similar way. And then in this time that we're living in right now, this idea of the collective soul loss, it really registers in a different way. And that's what I am really finding fascinating, and what I kind of want to bring up and allow a conversation around is like, where are you feeling it, and how is it impacting you, and then how do we collectively return ourselves to ourselves, right? So that this doesn't have to impact our future generations. We don't have to pass this on to our children. The weird dysfunctions that come into our psyche and our soul can be unwound, right? Because, I mean, clearly the level of germophobia is off the charts going on right now. And, you know, we can't even touch each other without fear of killing each other. This is having a serious impact on every level of our being. And so I just, you know, I've been observing this from the beginning, that I've been spilling a little bit every day, kind of. Well, not every day, but some days are much worse than others. But I've been having to purposefully have a tending of my energy and bringing my soul back at least once a week, pretty much at this point, in order to stay functional. And all of those descriptions that people have been putting out about, the brain fog and the inability to have motivation, the depression, all of those things are descriptions of soul loss in general, but collectively we are in a cycle of soul loss. And the thing about a cycle of soul loss is that it's like it just keeps leaking, right? And our media definitely seems to want us to be completely fragmented and unable to function. It seems to be the only goal that makes any sense for why they're approaching everything the way they are. But that's just my judgment. Anyway, so I offer you this idea and to chew on a little bit. And if you are someone who practices energetic things, I recommend doing some soul retrieval, bringing some of your energy back from this whole event, this time that we're in. So my plan here wasn't just to, open up and then, drop the ball, but it is to be an ongoing conversation. And then I'd like to invite other people into the conversation. So my plan going forward from here is to have some conversational podcasts here. I will give some thought to what I could offer as far as a meditation, but I do believe the collective soul loss that we are currently suffering and have suffered in the past from other traumas takes a collective efforting to really repair. It's not because it's registering in all of us. One of us doing our work is not enough, right? We all need to acknowledge and bring this up in ritual and ceremony and bring ourselves back together. So one of the places that really came up for me is the the atomic age, right, as another example of collective soul loss. And I have a lot of wondering around, what that did to us as humanity, all of those bombs exploding on this planet and the damage it did to the planet itself, and then to the humans, right? That level of trauma has not been addressed as far as I know. I mean, I have, in doing work with people, I have recognized these certain spots in the body as places that it seems that everyone who comes to the table has some soul loss in that spot. And I have observed that for years and never really, I never really gave it the amount of wonder. I was always focused on the personal. I was always focused on what was that person ready to bring back today. And it didn't ever seem to correspond to those particular spots in everyone's body, right? So I just have a lot of wondering around how to heal that and what that might look like. And it would be a pretty big ceremony. and I hope you will join me in it at whatever point. But if you have any suggestions, you feel free to give me a comment. I am very new to this podcasting business, so any interaction is welcome because, it's exciting. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I'm going to say that's enough for right now, and I appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.